should have got together with the Bishop's Castle guy.
Yeah, he had all kinds of metal left over.
Doodle exchange.
Yeah, he's
Yep.
coming.
Okay, perfect.
Straggler, this one's
Well, welcome everyone to Baldessar's Chapel Courtyard. If you look up right here, you will see a bird's nest. I always like to point that out. I think it's very, very beautiful. Now we do have some interesting trees in this area. To my left is a Valencia orange tree. Valencia oranges are very sweet, good to eat in the wintertime, not so much today. And then these two are sour oranges, which are typically used in recipes instead of eating directly from the trees themselves. Now, as I said once before, Baldessar liked to incorporate the numbers 3 and 7 into a lot of his building plans, and he did this for a very specific reason. He was, of course, a Roman Catholic. 3 represents the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and 7 represents the 6 days of creation and the final or 7th day of rest. Being an Italian Roman Catholic, he believed that by incorporating these special numbers and therefore God into his building plans, his entire home would be blessed down here. And to my right, you will see another example of that pattern of 3. This is one of Baldessar's original grapevines, and if you look up, you'll see it exits the hard pan in 3 different areas. The hard pan is solid rock, and he trained his grapevine over so many years to do this, which just shows the dedication to his faith as well as his building practices down the road here. We will see many examples of 3s and 7s, so just keep an eye out for those. Now in 1923, Baldessar had been down here for about 17 years alone, building and excavating his small home. But no one in the community really knew anything about him. He was kind of this mystery guy here in the Fresno area. So in 1923, the Fresno Bee, which is our local newspaper, decided to send out one of their reporters to do a first look at interview with Baldessar. Now Baldessar takes this reporter on a tour of 10 acres of developed land. And by developed land, I do mean 10 acres of hallways, passageways, corridors, and rooms that Baldessar has managed to excavate by himself and by hand in just 17 years. Now he tells this reporter, the visions in my mind almost overwhelm me. Baldessar was quite the intellectual, creative, and artist. During his time down here, he refused to keep any kind of documentation. That means he was building everything that we're going to see this afternoon without any drawings, maps, diagrams, blueprints, journals, or building permits. Again, he has many lizards and things that you will see around the gardens. Everyone and everything likes to be down here. So again, kept no written documentation. Everything that he wanted down here came directly from his mind and out into his work. Because Baldessar kept no written documentation, we don't actually know how far he managed to excavate in the 40 years that he was down here. And he was building the entire time. In 1923, we had about 10 acres, and he passed away 23 years later in 1946. So we could say that he was probably able to excavate somewhere between 18 and 24 acres by the end of his life. And just to put that into perspective a little bit, our average American football field is about 1 acre. So it was 24 football fields worth of hard work. So at this point, let's continue over to Baldessar's private chapel. It is right through this archway. If you all follow me this way, please.
Great question. Have you ever picked up those trees at the end of the season?
Yes, so these oranges that you're going to see on our fruit section are from last season. We like to leave one in the store route just because we get visitors every single day. We've never actually seen that happen. Oranges or these oranges. So we like to show them that personally. But we do harvest them when they're in season, right? In the fall and the winter months. Yes. So for everyone to Baldessar's private chapel, if you look up, you'll see his original chapel bell still up there. Now, being a Roman Catholic, he would ring that bell every other day as well as on Sunday. Balthasar was a bit of a recluse or a hermit, as he was living down here for so many years alone. But Balthasar was actually really social. He had lots of friends in the area, family as well. His younger brother Giuseppe, pictured up here on the right-hand side, also immigrated to Fresno just a few years after Balthasar did. He lived just down the street with his wife and children, and they would often visit Balthasar, and the kids would go running through all the passageways and tunnels of their uncle's home. Yes, but he did not want anyone to get lost when they came to see him. It does get a little bit confusing down here. I sometimes find myself completely disoriented, especially at this time in the afternoon. So he instructed all visitors to come here first, ringing the chapel or the doorbell. It would then echo through all the corridors, passageways, rooms, and even above ground. So wherever Balthasar was, he'd be able to hear that bell and start to make his way downstairs to greet his visitors and show them around. Now, just in case you missed it the first couple of times, that is what the hard pan looks like naturally in the earth. So, as you can imagine, 40 long years of that very physical labor did begin to take a toll on Balthasar's health and body. In 1946, he developed a hernia. He was transported to the local hospital and luckily recovered from surgery, but unfortunately he developed pneumonia. And he passed away very suddenly at the young age of 67 in 1946. It was all very sudden and very tragic, and during his time down here, Balthasar did not marry, he did not have children, and most importantly, he did not leave a will when he passed away. So he had 80 acres of land, an entire hometown below, and no will, which caused quite the debate in the community. No one knew what to do with his land, but he did come from a very large Italian family. He had 5 other siblings. Eventually, the Forestiere decided to sell off all 80 acres of land and split the profits amongst the 5 siblings. Only Giuseppe decided to return with his share of the profits and repurchase as much land as he possibly could, which was only 10 acres of the original 80. Now Giuseppe had 2 sons. When he passed away, the land was split in half, 5 acres and 5 acres. Today, the Forestieres only own 5 acres of the original 80. The rest have been lost, unfortunately. But the 5 acres that we do have today, all thanks to Rick, one of Giuseppe's sons. Now, Rick did pass away at the end of last year. He was 92. But during his time down here, he married Lorraine. Together, the two of them came down and took over management of our entire grounds. In 1979, exactly 100 years after Balthasar was born, they got us our National Historic Landmark status, so we are number 916 in California. We're so hoping that our 5 acres of land are going to continue to be preserved for many generations. And we are still family owned and operated to this day, which I think is very unique. So at this point, you are welcome to look around the chapel area. If you're feeling particularly adventurous this afternoon, I do encourage you to go down this tunnel. It all loops back around. When you're ready, I'll be waiting for you right here to continue our tour in this direction next.
Were some of the tunnels filled in?
All of them.
All of the people who ended up with them?
Private developers came in, Starbucks, Highway 99,
And they filled
Shaw,
it in.
They filled in. Now, we do have some tunnels left over under Carl's Jr. down the street, and I hear that they use part of them as their storage room. I'm not going to comment on that, but at least they're preserved. Somewhat. So my background is in archaeology, so it's a tragedy, I think, that they have been lost for the most part.
Who's the?
Some of them do, yes. They're here all the time doing restoration, gardening, maintenance. We just saw them this morning at Forestiere.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. And they all descend from Giuseppe.
Just that big, yes. Now, like with many families, especially Italian families, you know, there's quite the drama. And not everyone is on the same page all the time. So,
I bet.
yeah.
Are all these like scrap metal things just reinforcements and stuff?
So they're pretty much as original, like that one that you're getting. Under this, and this I'm sorry? Oh, some of them were, but not these. These were, you'll see patterns of the 3s and 5s and 7s, so some of them were just decorative. Other tunnels, they don't go anywhere. Other archways were just filled in. Like the hallway you came into the lobby, if you go out that way, if you look to the left, you will see some archways that have just been cemented in. Not exactly sure why that was done a long time ago. Yeah.